Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Legionaries of Christ and I teach theology. This is a podcast on the Star Quest Production Network at sqpn.com. J. Ronde 221 and Recovering Apostolicum Exorcism 21-22 on Valuing Apostolic Organizations. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican and frmatthewlc.com/Vatican. Yesterday we spoke about how there's lots of good lay apostolate and it exists over time, and it set out four criteria for determining which is good lay apostolate. Today we're going to finish chapter 4 on the various forms of the apostolate, and the summary is we should hold apostles endorsed by Bishop highly, and we should praise full-time apostles. That's really 21 and 22 separate. 21, the summary is that all associations are good, but we should hold those the bishop supported in highest esteem. In this paragraph, it used the word hierarchy, not bishops, but hierarchy generally refers to the bishops and pope. Here it could refer to some higher ranking priests in the diocese, but we can simplify it to the bishops and the pope. So let's read it. Oh, there's no subparagraphs, so let's read it. All associations of the apostolate must be given due appreciation. Those, however, which the hierarchy of praise are recommended as responsive to the needs of the time and place, or of order to be established as particularly urgent, must be held in highest esteem by priests, religious, and laity, and promoted according to each one's ability. Among these associations, moreover, international associations or groups of Catholics must be especially appreciated at the present time. So this number is pretty straightforward. We see that all apostolates helping the church's mission are good. We don't take this as like, hey, show this in high esteem to disregard the others. I know plenty that are started by lay Catholics, great organizations, not necessarily having the support, like the explicit vocal support or recommendation from the local bishop. They're still great apostolates. But there is a certain thing to put in higher esteem when a bishop praises or recommends one or starts one up, right? So that's why we talk about things like Catholic charities. We talk about things that a bishop might say that this catechetical is set up in a catechetical institute in his diocese or an institute for helping the disabled in his diocese. And it's good not to create duplicates of that. And I think that works also with the international organizations, that we have these organizations and they have a way to do it. And it's better just to tap into that rather than trying to create something all anew. I would not support somebody who's just going to say, oh, I'm going to create my own apostolate to collect food and have a food pantry for the poor. Well, like there's the St. Vincent de Paul Society, there's Catholic charities. Why don't you just connect with one of them? Because they have the kind of expertise and know the pitfalls you can fall into, and you'll probably be much more effective if you do that. And I think that that's important, and that also gives you that wider spectrum so you can share ideas better. I know one of my responsibilities at one point was I was working in the communications department for the Legion and Regnum Christi. And I would be regularly, every week, writing stories where I'd interview people who were doing different apostolates around the country, Canada and the U.S., I guess the countries. And by doing that, then we'd send them out a newsletter, and it should inspire other Legionaries and Regnum Christi members elsewhere in the country maybe to consider some things about that apostolate for their own apostolate. And this is kind of how that connection here with Regnum Christi, which I'm involved with, can be. And I don't mean just say Regnum Christi. I think Regnum Christi is great, but I'm not here to be a Regnum Christi exclusivist. I think all the different organizations can be great in that regard. Now we continue with paragraph 22. It has two subparagraphs, which we'll read together, but we'll summarize separately. So the summary, A, we should honor lay people who work full-time for the church and dedicate their specialties or professional things. And B, we should ensure they and their families are cared for. So let's read it. A, deserving a special honor and commendation in the church are those lay people, single or married, who devote themselves with professional experience, either permanently or temporary, to the service of the association and their activities. There is a source of great joy in the church in the fact that there is a daily increase in the number of laypersons who offer their personal service or apostolic associations or activities, either within the limits of their own nation or in the international field, or especially in Catholic mission communities and in regions where the church has only recently been implanted. B, the pastors of the church should gladly and gratefully welcome these laypersons and make sure that the demands of justice, equity, and charity relative to their status be satisfied to the fullest extent, particularly as regards proper support for them and their families. They should also take care to provide for these lay people the necessary formation, spiritual consolation, and incentive. So it's good to have lay people working for the church or working for these different associations. And one of the things it talked about is in the missionaries. One of the priests who was in the seminary with me is a priest who, his dad, when he was younger, when this priest was younger as a middle schoolish kid, his dad got a job building churches in Papua New Guinea for the diocese there, because his dad was kind of engineer, general contractor, and they would go around and build one church and move to a different town and build another church and things like that. And that is perfectly filling this idea of doing these mission territories. And his dad has this expertise, being a general contractor and engineer and things, and it worked very well. And I've worked with a whole bunch of lay people in my own ministry, and sometimes they've been my boss. And I think that a lot of them who did that, they were very helpful in doing that, and they dedicated it to a particular apostolate. What I was talking about before, I worked in the communications for Freedom of Christi and the Legionaries of Christ. There was a lay person above me in the office, and they were in charge of it. And they were the general person. I was more just the producing the stories and things like that. When I was teaching at a college, there's a chair of theology who's setting my class schedule and things like that. It's a lay person, and he teaches and does all these great things. And it's great that he does that. That is a great service to that college, which can be considered like this apostolate, this association. And so I think it's great to see all these lay people doing it. It's great joy to see it. And I think that there is wonderful. And it's really, it's especially valuable when they have particular professional expertise, like the cases I was talking about. It's great also when we see people who dedicate themselves. A lot of times, I know, for example, one of the priests, his mom recently retired, and she had been the secretary to his home parish for decades. And that's a great service too. Even though that's maybe not quite as specialized of a skill, it is a great service when lay people do that as well. But we need to make sure that they're covered financially and they're given that formation. That's what B is about. We have a challenge at church. We often pay less, but we still need to make sure that they and their families can survive. There's a challenge sometimes with maternity leave. The church is not always the best in providing for that. There is a challenge of paying people enough. I've known several, I'd have to count exactly, but more than 2 youth ministers who were doing good youth ministry. Their wife was pregnant, or they were pregnant as a woman, and they wanted more money from the parish. Now they're going to have another mouth to feed at home, and the parish wouldn't give them the raise, and they had to go and work in a secular profession because they didn't have enough money. And that's the kind of thing that this is talking about. We need to make sure of this. And there's obviously these people, we shouldn't be going out and trying to get people who are just looking for the most money, but there should be a justice to make sure that their family is provided for. And then also we need to provide formation and spiritual direction, things like that as well, as noted at the end. So thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. This is a listener-supported podcast, and you can donate to help StarQuest produce it and other great podcasts at sqpn.com/give. You can give one-time monthly or join the StarQuest Patreon. Tomorrow we're going to continue with the next paragraph of Apostolicum Axiositatem 23-24 on the lay apostolate is a part of the church. Remember, Apostolicum Axiositatem is on the lay apostolate, and the lay here refers to anyone who's not a priest or religious, but it also is that particular vocation to be holy in the world. Holy as in H-O-L-Y, but also holy as in W-H-O-L-L-Y. So your whole self, and you're also holy in the world. And so that's important. But please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, which provides a blueprint for the Catholic Church. If you want more information on this podcast, like playlists on individual documents and a reading plan, go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X.